Welcome to CitrinCooperman's Corner Chats. I'm Peter Katz of Westfair Communications, publisher of the business journals, westfaironline.com, News at Noon, and other electronic newsletters to keep you fully informed. On this edition, we'll be talking about a word that makes people shudder: audits. Now, when you hear the word audits, you may immediately think that Uncle Sam is banging at the door and demanding to see the past decade's worth of tax returns. But audits has a much deeper meaning and something that's important for all businesses to consider. And with us is Danny McGuire of CitrinCooperman. Now, Danny is an audit partner in CitrinCooperman's financial services practice, and he has extensive experience serving clients in the financial services industry with a focus on broker-dealers, hedge funds, and private equity funds. His current responsibilities include providing audit services to broker-dealers and alternative investment funds, their management companies, and owners. And Danny, welcome to Corner Chats.
Morning, Peter. Good to be here.
Well, I said the word audits, and I could hear people starting to get nervous already. First of all, let's begin with something very basic. What is an audit in the context of what you do at CitrinCooperman?
Well, an audit, from my perspective, been an auditor for over 25 years. Our view is we're just working with a company to verify that their books and records are fairly stated, that they're accurate, and that they're complete. In other words, the information that they've disclosed to investors, we will then, as auditors, verify that information to ensure it's true and accurate to what it states.
And so what you're doing then is certifying in a way that the information that's being presented is something that can be relied upon. Is that a fair statement?
That's absolutely a fair statement. And that is the purpose of what we do. We are going to issue an audit opinion on those financial statements that we are issuing. And we want to ensure that those who are relying on it can rely on our audit opinion.
What is the process that's involved in doing an audit? Do you have to go through every single entry that's made in a company's records?
No, we don't go through every single entry. That would be very time-consuming, tedious, and just not necessary. What we'll do from a process standpoint is we meet with management kind of mid-year into the fall. We'll go through a planning meeting with them. We'll understand what is going on from a business operational standpoint. We'll understand what's new from the prior year. We want to get a sense of the activity that's occurred. Has it been significant? Has there been a decrease? We'll then step back as auditors and we'll meet as a team and go through a planning based on that. We understand the industry. Is the client that we're looking at, the hedge fund, is it consistent with what we're seeing from industry metrics? Are the returns consistent? We'll look at it from a planning perspective. We'll then take that information and then we will then work with the client on testing several different significant line items. What I mean significant is we go through a planning process. We'll go through a risk assessment. We'll understand where the riskier items are on an entity's financial statements. Do they have cash? We'll confirm cash. We'll confirm that with a third party, with the banks. Do they have investments? We'll confirm the investments with the custodian. We'll look at the valuation of those investments.
So this is a time-consuming technical thing you're doing.
No, absolutely. It is time-consuming. From soup to nuts, we start our planning and interim test work in the fall timeframe. Normally, depending on the size of the client, obviously, but we'll normally start in the October timeframe. We'll start doing some interim test work. What I mean by interim test work is we'll start testing transactions that have occurred between January and say September. We'll test those, make sure there's no issues. We'll then come back after year end to do additional testing for that fourth quarter period to get us to the 12/31 date to which we're issuing our financial statements as of. We'll then perform procedures on that roll forward period. We'll do some transactional testing, and then we'll go through the financial reporting process, which is reviewing the financial statements that the client has provided us, ensuring that the information that's included on those financial statements agrees with the information that we've audited. We will then have a review process, which our seniors are performing the work. We have managers reviewing and directors reviewing the work. And then we have partners over the top who review that. I'm an engagement partner. I'm going to be reviewing the work that my team does. We then have a quality control review process where we have another partner in the firm who is independent of the engagement team, and he'll come in over the top and perform a review over significant areas. He'll review financial statements and provide comments to make sure that we haven't missed anything in our judgment of the audit, as well as ensuring that the procedures are complete and accurate and are sufficient enough for us to issue an opinion with the CitrinCooperman letterhead.
So once you guys have done this, can the business owner feel absolutely confident that anything that's shown in their books is absolutely accurate? Can people who see that CitrinCooperman has released an opinion on this and has done the audit be confident that whatever the numbers show are going to hold up?
Yes, I absolutely believe that management and third-party investors can rely on the audited financial statements that we've issued. We perform our audits under U.S. GAAP, which is our auditing standards. As long as we abide by those and we perform all of our procedures consistent with the auditing standards, I believe that anybody can rely on that opinion.
In some cases, I suppose you're dealing with public companies, and the Securities and Exchange Commission recently put out some new rules and regulations on handling audits. Is that correct?
So yes and no. Just to clarify, Peter, the new rules that the SEC issued was specifically adopted for private fund advisors. So it's not for public companies, but it's for private funds. They have different regulations that apply to each of those. And as a result, the SEC took a look back, and they felt a need to address certain practices within the industry that may impose significant risks or harms on investors. And as a result, they've issued new guidance and new rules for the private funds to apply on a go-forward basis.
When you conduct an audit, to what extent do you need to fulfill the responsibilities that are imposed upon you by government agencies, versus your own adoption and use of traditional standards within the industry?
There's a mix of both. We obviously, any regulation from an industry standpoint that has been issued, we are required to abide by those rules. So, for example, there's two sets of opinions you can essentially issue for audits. One of those is the AICPA, which is for any private company. You issue your audit report under the AICPA rules and regulations. If you're a public company or a broker-dealer, you would issue your audit opinion under PCAOB standards. So there are two different standards that exist for public companies as well as private companies.
Suppose I'm a small business operator, or maybe even medium-sized. To what extent should I give thought to starting to have my books audited and my financials audited, even if it's something that I never thought would be possible or needed?
I think it depends on the use of those financial statements. Well, what's the purpose? Is there a need for it? Do you have to, for example, provide them? You have bank debt. You borrowed money from a bank. Does the bank require you to have financial statements? If you've never had audited financial statements in the past, and you're looking to potentially borrow some money to increase the size of your business. There might be an opportunity to consider the fact that you want to start preparing audited financial statements. If you wait too long, as you can appreciate, it is a time-consuming exercise. These aren't done overnight, and as such, you want to have as much advanced prep as possible.
Something just occurred to me, and I may be going slightly overboard in suggesting this, but suppose that that I don't engage in having my books audited, and I do submit financial information to a bank, or in some way present it to someone I'm trying to induce to do something based upon those numbers. Am I taking a risk to my own possible criminal liability if I do not present audited, trustworthy figures here?
Well, the bank is going to rely potentially less on the information you're providing directly, right? By having a third-party auditor, such as CitrinCooperman, verify that information, that the bank has more comfort that the information that they've received is fairly stated and accurate. Not saying that everybody is a criminal by any means, but somebody might falsify certain information to potentially get some debt or borrowings from a bank. So there is that possibility. A bank, if they don't receive audited financial statements, will perform additional due diligence on the company to ensure that the information that they have obtained from them is fairly stated.
So really making a decision on whether to engage in auditing or not engage in auditing, it is essentially a business decision. In other words, would make better business sense to do it in many cases.
And it depends on the industry that you're in and what you do. So yes, if you're a small mom and pop business, it's going to be a business decision on their part. Do they need the additional in quotes, the expense to get audited financial statements if they're the only users? However, there are certain industries that require audited financial statements. As you mentioned before, if you're a public company, you're required to get audited financial statements. If you're a broker dealer, you're required under the SEC rules and regulations to get an annual audit. With the new rules that have just been recently adopted by the SEC for private fund advisors, they are also requiring all private funds to have audited financial statements on an annual basis. So there are certain industry requirements and regulations that force you to get an audit versus, small private companies who are just, industrial companies or mom and pops of the nature aren't required to have them per se.
So, Danny, without violating any confidences, when you've conducted audits, have you gone into situations where you've taken a look at a company's books and records and have seen what can be only described as a horror show, something that requires your immediate attention?
Peter, I mean, as auditors, we hope to not encounter those type of situations. However, they do at times occur. I have had situations whereby we have had multiple issues occur throughout an audit. And I define these as inadvertent. I don't define them as the company trying to, fraudulently, kind of cook the books, for lack of a better term. It's more the lack of experience, lack of personnel who are familiar with how to book journal entries, how to prepare financial statements on that front. The auditing standards, though, do require us to issue certain written reports at the end of an audit. One of those communications that we are required to report is, should there be any deficiencies, significant deficiencies, or material weaknesses that we've identified throughout an audit. That will then be communicated to senior management, as well as a board or an audit committee if one exists. So we would identify that to senior management that there were issues that rose to either a material weakness, significant deficiency, or just deficiency for that matter.
And when you discover errors in, let's say, the process by which a company puts together its records, do you folks, then sit down with the management of that company and make recommendations as to how their processes and procedures can be brought up to standards?
Absolutely. As part of the planning phase that I mentioned earlier, we do perform walkthroughs of the significant processes that a company has. Oftentimes, when we perform those walkthroughs, we're in essence, repeating what management does or their team does on a daily basis as part of the business operations. Sometimes we'll identify it within a walkthrough. We'll identify that something is incorrect. Other times, it's going to be through the test of details that we're going to perform that we're going to identify errors. And then we will look to the root cause of why that error has occurred. But we are meeting with management along the process. If we identify something that doesn't appear correct, we're immediately talking to management to get their side. Maybe we missed something on our end that we need further explanation from them. Other times it's, no, you're right. You're right, Citrin. We did mess this up. We'll take a look at it and get back to you.
On a personal basis, Danny, as you go through the process of audits, are there particular things that you find especially rewarding about the work?
Well, from my end, you obviously build relationships with clients. That to me is one of the perks of this job. We've got multiple clients in our portfolio. We're dealing with those different clients every single day. We're not only working generally with just one client. So you get to build those relationships. That to me is one of the best perks that this industry does offer and allows us to work and build on. A second thing I would say is we're not doing the same thing every day. I look at my morning calendar every day, and it's completely different than what I did yesterday or the day before or the week before. Yes, we do perform audits. The audits do have minimum requirements, and we obviously are performing similar procedures, but every day is different and calls for something new that's going to occur.
What is it in your background that led you to become interested in the field of auditing?
Good question. I have an undergraduate degree, a liberal arts undergraduate degree. I was an economics and French major in college. I then joined my first company. I worked for KPMG for 23 years. I joined a program that they were offering at the time that was tailored to liberal arts students who would then get their MBA with a focus in the accounting industry. I really liked that. I wanted to get my MBA. I knew I was going to get my MBA at some point in time, and that allowed me to accelerate that path. So when I joined KPMG, I was in the audit practice. I was getting my MBA within accounting and finance. And just those first 2 years, 3 years of experience within KPMG, within the audit industry, as I mentioned to you before, working with multiple clients, I just took a liking to that and continued on. I will say one of the most important perks also to this is the people that you work with. You work with good people, you're going to enjoy what you're doing. It can be very stressful during busy season, but when you enjoy the person that you're working with right next to you, it makes it go a lot quicker, a lot easier, and it's less painful for everybody on the team.
By busy season, I guess you mean tax season and
Yeah.
end of
So
year
from an
season.
audit standpoint, December 31st is the most companies have 12/31 year ends, December 31st. So beginning in January and starting to creep up kind of mid-January through February, March, and April is what I define as the audit busy season. That's when all of the financial statements are getting issued and finalized. Broker dealers have either a 60-day or a 90-day deadline. Um, Hedge funds generally have anywhere from a 90 to 120-day deadline. So that brings it to the end of April, within my industry at least, to get everything done. Within other industries, similar time frame. They're also in that February, March, April timeframe as well.
And as an auditor and someone who's concerned with the minuscule details of getting financial records right and accurate and complete, uh, if I were running a small business, a mom and pop, are there some basic things that I should be doing that might help ensure the accuracy of the financial records that I have? Again, but based upon your experience in working with these funds and very technical businesses and records, what lessons could there be that you could impart to the small mom and pop operator?
My biggest suggestion would be to be as organized as possible. Um, don't don't try to wait a couple months to close your books. Most companies in my industry, at least, will close their books on a monthly basis. Um, Smaller mom and pop shops, may not necessarily be required to close their books on a monthly basis. They might extend it. So I suggest just be as organized as you can. Keep all the documentation you can to support the financial information that you're including in your books and records. Um, that evidence is something that the auditors will potentially want to look at to support the numbers on the financial statements. So the more organized you are, the easier it is to provide that information to the auditors, and it allows an audit to go much smoother.
And if I'm a person who can barely balance my own checkbook, um, should I be afraid if I hear someone say, "We want to do an audit of your tax returns or of your company records," or something like that, or is it possible that an audit is just something that needs to be considered as a routine matter of business?
I think an audit is a routine matter of business. Within the financial services industry, it is something that occurs for all companies. Again, they're required to get them. They happen every year. Um, Listen, most people, Peter, are not trying to perform any type of fraud. That's not the everyday person. Um, as long as you keep all your information, you're organized, you have supporting documentation, it's going to go fine. Just work with the auditors. Try not to, don't hide anything per se. If you did something wrong, just admit it right up front. Say, when you asked for this, we went back and looked at it. We think we have an error. We want to run it by you. Just be open, have that communication, and I think it's going to go fine.
In your professional experience, are there auditors and then are there really great auditors, or does everyone just have to meet the same standards?
No, there's definitely differentiating factors, and I think auditors. What's critical is to understand the industry that you're auditing. The more you understand the industry, the easier it is to have certain discussions with a client. The client doesn't look at you saying, "Well, you don't understand my industry. Why are you asking me these questions?" When you understand the industry, you can have a much easier conversation with your client especially when you identify potential issues or differences that need to be discussed. It smooths the process. If you're not familiar with an industry, well, then you're going to have a hard time performing that audit. You're probably going to miss certain things. The client is not going to have a great experience because it's going to take up much more of their time to explain things to you as to how things work.
If you had the opportunity to, let's say, stand on the rooftop of a building and shout out a message that people needed to hear about the auditing services that you and CitrinCooperman can provide and what the benefits would be to their business, what would that message be?
The message is we're here to work with you. We're not against you. We're not trying to find errors. We just want to verify the information that you have. Well, I view us as a team. Yes, we're independent of management, but to go through an audit, to get it done successfully, to get it done timely, to get it done with as least pain as possible, it's working as a team. I've had clients who have been fantastic and working side by side with us, providing us information timely, having our standard status meetings, recognizing what the priorities are. And that's been great for purposes of getting an audit completed on both ends.
And on that note, Danny McGuire, thanks so much for being with us on this edition of CitrinCooperman's Corner Chats. I'm Peter Katz of Westfair Communications.
Thank you, Peter. Much appreciated.